Welcome everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of 2 semi-running champions and comparison, featured by Wild League, League of Legends versus the Mobile Legend Bang Bang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell button so you will be notified to our new next episode video. Let's do this!
Braum is a hero of the Freljord, a champion strongman famed for his selfless and legendary feats. Once a simple goat herder, Braum found an unbreakable door and uses it as a shield to protect man and creature alike on his journey through Runeterra. In-game, Braum is a tanky support with the ability to defend allies from a barrage of attacks before hammering out his own immense crowd control abilities. Whenever Braum attacks an enemy, he applies a stack of his passive concussive blows. If Braum dishes out 4 blows to the head, he deals a burst of magic damage and stuns his enemy. For a brief period after, Braum's basic attacks against them deal extra magic damage, although they won't receive additional stacks of concussive blows. There are 2 things worth noting here. First, Braum's allies can help trigger the stun with basic attacks and on-hit abilities. Second, Braum can initiate concussive blows against multiple enemies simultaneously. Braum punches his shield, sending out a frozen skill shot that damages and heavily slows the first enemy struck. Winter's Bite also applies concussive blows, giving him the opportunity to stun distant enemies. Winter's Bite is essential for gaining lane dominance. Tag your opponent with it from range to give your marksman opportunities for great trades. Braum's W is Stand Behind Me, a targeted ability that Braum can only use on himself and his friends. Stand Behind Me sends Braum leaping to an allied champion or minion, giving him and his ally bonus armor and magic resistance. Note that Braum will automatically stand between his target and the nearest enemy champion, allowing him to effortlessly block skill shots with his awesome body. Seriously, check out those pecs. Use Stand Behind Me whenever you're separated from your allies. Since it allows you to cross over terrain, you can keep yourself in a good position while buffing their defenses. On activation, Braum raises his shield in a target direction for a few seconds, blocking all damage from the first incoming attack or spell. Any subsequent damage from that direction is reduced by a percentage while the shield remains active. The most notable thing about Unbreakable is that Braum's shield intercepts and stops all incoming projectiles, even those targeted at allies behind him. This allows Braum to tank damage and crowd control effects for his team. Here's one nuance worth pointing out. Though Unbreakable doesn't intercept non-projectile abilities, he does reduce the damage he takes provided his shield is facing the source of the damage. For example, if Unbreakable faces the center of Zyra's ultimate, Braum will take reduced damage, but he won't prevent damage to his allies. Braum can cast other abilities and move slightly faster while the shield is raised, and keep the shield pointed at the initial target direction regardless of his movement. Finally, as awesome as Unbreakable is, it's not awesome enough to block turret attacks or true damage. Unbreakable can negate major area of effect spells for your teammates. Save it for hard-hitting ultimates to block off a barrage of attacks. Braum's ultimate is Glacial Fissure. Braum slams his shield into the ground, sending out a huge shockwave that knocks up, damages, and slows enemies in a line. Enemy units immediately around Braum are knocked up significantly higher than enemies further away. If there are no enemy champions immediately around Braum, the first champion in the shockwave is knocked up higher instead. Glacial Fissure also leaves behind a large zone of ice that slows all enemies. Glacial Fissure is great for disengaging from team fights. The ability creates a slow zone that will handicap your opponents, especially in the narrow corridors of the jungle. Braum strikes his own destiny. One of his many abilities, Stand Behind Me, is an extremely versatile skill that has several offensive and defensive options when paired with the rest of his kit. Let's look at a few important plays you'll need in order to become master of the mustache. The first is blocking for an ally. Determine what direction the most damage or crowd control is coming from. Then leap in to get between danger and your ally before using Unbreakable to disrupt the attack. This is your basic defensive pattern for clutch saves, and requires good timing. When assisting allies in a chase or aggressive play, use Stand Behind Me instead as a gap closer. By choosing an ally closest to your enemy, you can often put yourself in range to slow them with Winter's Bite. You can also jump to allied minions, allowing for some tricky plays in lane. Finally, if one of your friends gets caught out in a bad situation surrounded by enemy champions, Braum can come to the rescue. Use Stand Behind Me to jump to the center of the action. Then knock up and slow everyone around your allies with your ultimate. This will give your team a chance to disengage or allow other allies to step in and help if needed. In lane, a successful Braum will constantly look for opportunities to stack his passive for a stun. By tagging Janna with Winter's Bite, he makes it easy for Quinn to follow up and pick her off with the bonus damage and stun. Turning his attention to Vayne, he stacks concussive blows with another Q and basic attacks, helping focus her down before she can land a killing blow on Quinn. Note that Braum makes sure to stay behind Quinn while using Unbreakable, so he can tank any attacks directed at her, forcing Vayne to hit him instead as they retreat. Braum's Unbreakable completely negates damage from the first attack or spell that hits him, so with careful timing, you can effectively cancel your opponent's most damaging attack. Here, Braum blocks the gold card, and the damage reduction gives him just enough defense to survive. Braum excels when sticking close to his allies. As soon as Twitch appears, Braum repositions to the front of his marksman, ready to not only intercept Twitch's damage, but also hit both enemies with Glacial Fissure. Stand Behind Me's low cooldown allows Braum multiple chances to reposition and help allies in long team fights. In this example, Braum quickly finds himself singled out after committing to defend Garen. He uses Stand Behind Me to jump to Misfortune, and although he dies, he helps MF pick up the triple kill. A well-played Braum boldly throws himself in harm's way to protect his friends. When timed correctly, Unbreakable has the potential to shield allies against tons of damage. With great positioning here, Braum turns a lethal AoE combo into more of a mild annoyance, almost single-handedly turning the tide of this fight. Braum's big heart needs a lot of protection. Focus on health, armor, and magic resistance. The Nasty is also especially helpful since Unbreakable means Braum will be tanking crowd control meant for his allies. Mix in cooldown reduction to maximize Braum's own crowd controls, and you'll have a heavy frontline specialist ready to defend against any amount of aggression or unexpected bear wrestling.
Long time ago, Braum was a simple shepherd living in the mountains above his village. He was very well known for being the kindest man anyone had ever met. He always had a smile on his face and laugh on his lips. Tales about him say that he could chop down trees with his bare hands, and such strength was useful while helping others. Every time someone was in trouble, Braum was there to help. He ripped trees from roots to save drowning goats, and he put out fire burning the village on his own. He was just a man, but to the village, he was a hero. One day, as he was tending his goats and sheep, something terrible happened. A young troll boy was climbing above the village, and there he found a secret vault hidden in the side of the mountain. The entrance was guarded by a huge stone door with a shard of true ice in its center. When he opened the door, he couldn't believe his eyes. The vault was filled with gold, jewels, and every kind of treasure imaginable. What he didn't know was that the vault was a trap. It was cursed by Lysandra, and as the boy entered, the magical door shut behind him, locking him inside. He tried to get out, but there was just no way. Luckily, a passing shepherd heard his cries and called for help. Everyone rushed to the accident, but even the strongest warriors couldn't open the door.
The boy's parents were hopeless. The mother cried loudly in desperation, as if calling for a miracle. A distant laugh answered. As the hero everyone described him to be, Braum ran down the mountain with a laugh on his lips. The villagers told him about the troll boy and the curse that locked him in. To that, Braum smiled, nodded, and faced the door. He pushed it, pulled it, punched it, kicked it. He even tried to rip it from its hinges. But the door wouldn't budge. For the first time in a long time, Braum couldn't help. For 4 days and nights, Braum sat on a boulder trying to think of a solution. After all, a child's life was at stake. Then, as the sun rose for the 5th day, his eyes widened and a broad grin lit up his face. "If I can't go through the door," he said, "then I'll just have to go through..." He paused the sentence as he stood up. "The mountain." And so Braum climbed up to the peak of the mountain and started punching his way straight down, pummeling into stone, fist after fist, rocks flying in his wake, until he vanished deep in the mountain. As the villagers outside held their breath, the rock around the door crumbled, and when the dust cleared, they saw Braum standing in a room full of treasure with a weak but happy troll boy in his arms. But before they could celebrate, everything began to rumble and shake. As Braum cut his way through the mountain, he had weakened the structure, and now it was caving in. With no obvious way out, Braum grabbed the enchanted door and held it above him like a shield, protecting them as the mountain top collapsed all around them. When it was over, Braum was amazed that there wasn't a single scratch on the door. He knew it was something special, and from that moment on, the magical shield never left his side. But the world is a big place, and Braum realized it. So he set off into the distance, knowing his tales were not done yet. At the end of his story, he ventures off in the direction of a nearby avalanche. What may be the end of Braum's story may be the beginning of Udyr's story. Even the building in danger looks like a monastery, but there is no confirmation on that.